Hey, and welcome to States Unlocked, the place to learn about social psychology, human behaviour, and learn practical tips on how to improve your life. If you want to unlock higher states of consciousness and understand yourself and others better, be sure to subscribe. So, in this video, we're going to be learning all about person-centred therapy. Now, without further ado, I'm just going to tell you a little bit about person-centred therapy. So, person-centred therapy was founded by Carl Rogers, and this is a topic I personally know quite a bit about, as I have a first-class bachelor's degree in counselling skills, which focused heavily around this mode of therapeutic intervention. Now, unlike many forms of counselling, the person-centred approach is what's known as a non-directive form of therapy, meaning it is against the doling out of advice. Rogers believed that people were able to resolve their own problems and that advice didn't really work, and because basically if it did, there would be no need for counsellors in the first place. So it's something worth considering, actually. I mean, when was the last time someone advising you around some kind of emotions really actually shifted them? You know, if someone says to you, oh, try to look on the bright side, it doesn't really alter the way you feel in any kind of way. So Rogers had three core values which he believed that the therapist must communicate when practicing person-centred therapy, which were congruence, which basically means that the therapist's words and actions match up and align. And the next one was empathy, the demonstration of emotional attunement. And the third one was unconditional positive regard, which is a state of non-judgment and viewing the client in a positive light regardless of their actions. Essentially just seeing the client's actions as separate from the client. So here are some of my own insights and opinions on Carl Rogers' theory. So initially I wasn't a very big fan of this approach because I believed it to be far too passive, and I thought, like most people do, helping should be something very proactive and something quite obvious and explicit, in which you direct the other person to a better course and you give advice to the person suffering on how to remedy their problems. But I've since changed my stance on this quite profoundly, as I realised that Rogers was quite right in a lot of what he said. So while it's not to say that advice is always inappropriate or a bad thing to do, in my opinion, I agree with Rogers' stance, which is to advocate that the client find their own answers. So he believed in a self-directed approach in which the therapist simply restates to the client how they're feeling amongst other techniques in order to allow the client to gain insight into their own psyche and behaviour in order to find their own solutions. He stressed that the importance of using attending skills such as active listening and restating key feeling words to the client in order to allow them to feel seen, heard and validated was crucial. So through the process of learning, Rogers taught me that by allowing others to find their own answers, you're essentially allowing them to feel empowered and step into a version of themselves which can feel confident and in control of their life. And by doing so, you are truly putting the client first, as opposed to needing to feel helpful or like someone in the know, in which case you're the person whose needs are being centered around. So this was something that was particularly meaningful to me, as I always thought that advice was basically the way forward. And it's not to say that there is no value at all in giving advice, and I would like to point out that I'm also a fan of other more directive approaches of therapy. But through learning more about the person-centred approach, I realised assuming I know all of the answers is a little bit arrogant. It's an arrogant assumption, and by acting like that, it just serves to make me feel more self-important and like I'm somehow more knowledgeable than the person I'm trying to help. So ultimately, we are at the centre of our own lives, so surely we know the most about how to navigate it. So since studying the degree, I personally have felt some frustrations, as I can see a lot of people really have a lack of understanding of many of these concepts and unconsciously invalidate emotions. This has happened to me, I've seen it happen to other people as well. So people usually don't realise how destructive and unhealthy that is, or that they're even doing it necessarily in the first place per se, and that doesn't change the fact that it's not helpful though. So one example of advice which flies in the face of Carl Rogers' theory is toxic positivity, which I made a video about, and I would encourage you to watch it right after this video, as it's a very big problem in society and it might just shed some light on why you feel shame around certain emotions. So how can we apply what Carl Rogers teaches in everyday life, and what are the benefits to doing so? Well, I'm glad you asked. So some key skills I learned were the importance of listening to the music behind the words. So in order to really attune to someone else's emotions and what they're saying, you need to become aware of the tone someone is speaking in and really become cognizant of what is not being said. So another tip to really get to the root emotions behind someone's words is to really look at what they are saying. So being sure to spot key emotional words they use. For example, if someone were to say, "Since I've lost my daughter, I've been suffering so much. The pain is unbearable." The key emotive words there are loss, suffering, pain, and unbearable. So one way to help the person feel listened to and seen would be to feed back to them something similar by saying something along the lines of, "I can see this loss is very painful for you and bringing a lot of suffering." So this is, in my opinion, infinitely better than what many people may say, which might just be something along the lines of, "Oh, that's terrible," because it actually shows that you are truly attuning, listening, and you've heard the person, and you're empathizing and connecting with the actual feelings that they have. Now, obviously, this is a very serious example, but the same principles can be applied to any form of daily suffering. Now, what is the benefit to learning such a skill in the first place? Well, firstly, by making space for the person to feel what they feel, you make them feel validated, which is incredibly healing in and of itself. It helps to build emotional intimacy and a sense of trust. These are skills which a lot of people, I think, lack, and so they can often hurt people or leave people feeling alone when this is not what they actually want to do, but they merely don't understand how to communicate compassion and how to communicate empathy. And the skills that Rogers promotes can certainly go a long, long way in helping to communicate that. So there is a lot more lessons we can learn from Carl Rogers, but in the interest of keeping this video digestible, I'm going to leave it there for today. But if you do have any questions, feel free to leave them in the comment section below, and I will do my very best to answer them. So yeah, please subscribe to my channel for similar content. It takes a second to do, and it makes me really happy, and it ensures you never miss an upload. Also tap the bell for the same reasons. So I want to thank you for watching, and I will see you on the flip side. Ciao for now.